Welcome to IDIA Spain and AFPC France, who will showcase their national policy approach to clustering. Welcome to Laura Quintan and Antonio Novo. So we're going to have two presentations, and I'm going to introduce Laura first. Our first speaker, Laura Quintan from the French Association Pôle de Compétitivité, and we will have a collaborative teamwork this morning, and we all have to pronounce the word compétitivité. So for Laura, the Association Française de Pôle de Compétitivité, which gathers French clusters. The Pôle de Compétitivité are the top clusters with the label of excellence awarded by the French government. This Pôle de Compétitivité policy was launched in 2004 to boost public-private cooperation and to support collaborative R&D projects and encourage French competitiveness. AFPC is the Association of French Pôle de Compétitivité that was created in 2013 to represent the French Pôle de Compétitivité interests at regional, national, and at European level. After 15 years, and monitoring this policy is recognized as very efficient for innovation dynamics in France. The association today unites 56 Pôle de Compétitivité and works in working groups to advance strategic topics. AFPC is involved in the European Cluster Alliance, EUCLES, the European Excellence Labelling Structure, as a founding member. Laura Quintan is the Vice President of the European Working Group in AFPC and the Head of European Affairs in Minilogic since 2015. Minilogic is the global innovation cluster for digital technology serving France's Auvergne, Rhône, and Alpes region. And I'm going to hand over to you, Laura, to get started.
Thank you, Gloda. Thanks for this introduction. Welcome, everybody. Many thanks for having AFPC today. I would like first to apologize Pauline, General Secretary of our association, AFPC, that drafted this presentation and wanted to be there today, but she has unfortunately a death in her family and had to skip the meeting today. But I will try and replace her and present you the French Pôle de Compétitivité policy, so innovation clusters. Pôle de Compétitivité, we try and keep this term even in English because it's a real label, so it's a kind of mark, but of course it means innovation clusters. So just before starting, I will do a small photo for social media, if you don't mind. It's good to communicate around this event. So, oh, can you still see me? Yes. Good. Gloda, I guess you will show the slides, yeah? Two main parts of my presentation. First, this policy, how the French Pôle de Compétitivité were created and how they evolve. And then I will present our association, and if we have time, I will also present the newly created European Cluster Association that Gloda mentioned as well, EUCLES. Next slide, Gloda, please. Slide 4. So to begin, I will give you an overview of what our French cluster policy is. So actually, Pôle de Compétitivité are like other clusters association, representing large and small companies, research laboratories, universities, training, and R&D centers. All this ecosystem should work together in a specific region in order to develop cooperative efforts and foster collaborative research and R&D projects, either in cross-sectorial or cross topics or in a certain let's say, industry. So like the Porter definition of clusters. Launched in 2004 after a governmental policy, the clusters were created based on criteria for excellence in France and strategic areas for the French economy, strategic industrial topics. The selection was made by an interministerial committee involving economical affairs, research and development, and the French Prime Minister office. So for this first, let's say, phase, 67 projects were labeled and awarded and were created, well, in 2005. Second slide, please. Next slide. So this policy has now evolved in three stages, but we can say that the pôle de compétitivité label remained the real label of excellence given by the French government for our clusters activities. So this represents the French public policy, and the French government monitors this policy. Have monitored it for since the creation and for the current 4 phases. So now, currently, French pôle de compétitivité are at phase 4, and there were 3 former stages. The first one, 2005 to 2008, sorry, it was about creating the ecosystems, making the ecosystem work together in a learning process. 2009 and 2012, it was the second stage about strengthening the innovation capabilities by, we call this, it was the phases of Project Factory. It was about boosting collaborative projects within our ecosystem and make it grow. The third phase, between 2013 and 2018, we called it the Product Factory, from projects to products. It was supporting our ecosystem to bring their technologies into the market and create economic benefits. So that was phase 3. And I will present more in detail phase 4 in the next slide. But before that, it's important to mention that in French pôle de compétitivité, all industrial sectors are represented: aeronautics, agri-food, bioresources, environmental and energy technologies, healthcare, digital, nuclear, transportation, even wood economy or plastic. All industrial sectors are represented. Pôles de compétitivité are based all over France. There are larger regions like Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, where my cluster is based. We are the regions with the most, the highest number of clusters, and Réunion Island, not to forget, in France. Our island is in Indian Ocean, has also one cluster, so one pôle de compétitivité. So really a region, a national coverage. And how do we are supported actually by the government through at the beginning. Now you will see in phase 4, the current one, that it has evolved, but since the beginning, the government supported the pôle de compétitivité with two means. First one, direct credits allocated to our structures for our operating costs. And then calls for proposals. A large innovation program was dedicated to the projects that emerged through the pôle de compétitivité. So there was projects funded for our members only, where pôle de compétitivité had to label their projects. So that was that is more or less the main governmental support for our institutions, organizations. Next slide, please. 2015 marked a very important new era. There was a very important economical law in France called Loi Notre that entitled the regional authorities a very stronger economical responsibility and duties. So it meant also a strong and important evolution, an important evolution for our organizations. And we entered in the fourth phase of our labeling. So we had French clusters had to apply for this new era, new phase. And this phase was marked by three, let's say, topics. First, a European ambition. So the pôle de compétitivité had to get involved in more European collaborative projects to reach to a European dimension and increase their international influence. Then more recognized label. It means that the clusters were selected or should be selected according to very more strict defined objectives and demanding criteria. I can detail them after if you want. And it marked the existence of larger clusters or a pôle de compétitivité to federate really existing innovation ecosystems. And last point was to simplify the collaborative projects financing mechanisms. So it was also in parallel that France government start and reduce a bit the public funding for our members, but also let's say for the sake of simplicity also for the project holders. Yeah, so there as well, the regional authorities took a larger role in co-financing this innovation projects for our members, and in co-financing the clusters organizations as well. So in a larger extent, I would say. So the next slide, please. The new requirements for the stage 4 for our clusters. So only existing clusters may apply. So this was also the first time like this. So it brought this to the merger of several pôles de compétitivité. In order to comply with the with stronger requirements, some pôles de compétitivité had to merge with other ones. It brought also to a stronger cooperation with other structures. we had also to answer to new performance requirements. So each time in a new phase, we have what we call a performance contract with the government. And in this new performance contract, we had to reach a really critical mass in innovation ecosystem members, so larger ecosystems, based on a stronger economic and business model and governance for clusters, stronger in terms of private financing. So clusters had to demonstrate that they can demonstrate that they gather more than 50% of private funding for their governments, more or less. They had to be highly performant in supporting R&D collaborative projects in strategic sectors. This is where we also tried, where clusters started to collaborate with other structures called strategic, something like in English, industrial strategic committees, working hand in hand with the industrials associations to support strategic industrial sectors in France. And they had, of course, that what I introduced to show a strong European and international dimension, and in providing high potential also European ecosystems to reach this European dimension. So it's also about stronger supporting our members into reaching out European funding as well. Next slide, please. So to summarize, now we are in our 15th year of existence, more or less. All the competitivity are now very recognized and as an important tool in France for innovation, but also for economic development, especially in the current context. So there has been some study to evaluate the French Pôle competitivité policy, and it was very positive. I have some figures in the next slide. We can say that the Pôle de compétitivité are today totally involved in the public policy, thanks to first a very structured policy at governmental and now regional level that involves real quality criteria, and show also an evolution in our activities from the first stage that was really about learning together, to work together, to now the European level stage in phase 4. And actually this phase ends in 2022, and AFPC, our association, is already talking to the government and the regions to prepare the fifth phase. Yeah. And we have a strong, or we follow a strong objective of excellence first, and to evolve from a project factory, what we say now, to a product factory and to an international product factory. And what makes the French Pôle de compétitivité strong is that it is a recognized label, in all the funding, or not all, but in mainly the funding or programs at national levels for our members. So next slide, please. Some key figures figures issued from this survey, this France Stratégie survey. It's a governmental institute that does policy survey, and we are quite proud of this, because this study from 2020 said that 66% of the companies members in our pôle de compétitivité created jobs thanks our action, and or could maintain 84% of their jobs. 60% of our companies increased their R&D investments. And we have this very important, or it's not mentioned here, but very important figure. For €1 public funding in our members, €2.5 was invested by our private members. So it shows the leverage effect of the funding and R&D funding that can be more or less thrilled and supported by our pôle de compétitivité. So about 1,000 patents, more or less, were enabled through our action, and 200 startups created, including 100 directly connected with the R&D projects that came out of our project. So there were around 100 companies created thanks to the research results in this R&D project. And more or less, thanks to econometric assessment, always by the government, around 2% of turnover, well, increase of 2% in turnover on average for each of our SME members. So this is more or less the general overview of our French innovation cluster policy for the competitivity. Today there are 55 after the first, in the fourth phase, out of 76 right at the beginning. Now there are 56 still remaining.
Thank you, Laura.
Yes, AFPC, very short, if I have time or not. You might have the slides if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, Laura. Go ahead, Laura.
Okay, very quickly. It will be very straight to the point. 2013, we created this association to represent this French pôle de compétitivité and defend their interests. So our missions is about representing the pôle de compétitivité and their members before national authorities, boost their activity, and at European level, this is the work of the Working Group on European Affairs. It's about promote the role of clusters in driving French innovation with the French state and the regional authorities, and to foster communication. We do a lot of communication between clusters in order to develop best practices, strengthen our business model, and promote this labor. So we do that in working groups. Next slide. And or commissions, 3 permanent and strong ones. National Commission, it's about working on all the topics directly directed to the government. European Commission, this is the one that where I am vice chair, and the SME Commission is about really understanding and representing the voice of our SMEs, as we think we are suitable or good organizations to do so. Yes, this is, and Pauline is General Secretary and our only, let's say, staff on that. And the association unites all the French pôles de compétitivité, the 56.
Brilliant. Laura.
And UCLES, we created this association together with other European cluster associations, among them the one in Spain, where Antonio is a representative. And very brief and very quick is about structuring and managing the European labeling excellence program that was already in place and that have been revised with all the participants and led to the creation of a new association to manage this. So you will have the details, but in the slides, the association was created this month, or I guess, Antonio, you can maybe confirm, but last week or 2 weeks ago or last month, very shortly, and will very soon call for members at EU level. So if there are here in line some Irish clusters or Irish cluster association, you can contact us, Antonio or myself, to get more information on that.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. That was fabulous. Thank you for that presentation. I'm going to hold questions for just now, and I'm going to go over to Antonio, but please would you put your questions and your comments in the chat function in the meantime. Antonio, do you want to share screen while I'm introducing you, please? And I think Andrew, who's familiar with Pôle Competitive Aid from the Geoscience Cluster, has recommended that anybody here from Cluster should go and check out the Pôle Competitive Aid in La France, the directory. So I want to introduce our second speaker here this morning. It's Antonio Novoguera, Managing Director of IDIA in Spain and President of the European Cluster Alliance. Antonio is the Managing Director of Cluster IDIA, which brings together 81 Aragonese companies and institutions that collaborate in the development of ICT projects. He holds the presidency of the European Cluster Alliance and of Clusters.es, the Spanish Federation of Clusters. He's also a member of the EU Industrial Forum, the expert group on clusters of the European Commission, and the CMMI, the Consultative Commission on Industrial Change in the European Economic and Social Committee. Antonio Novo combines his training as a technologist and as a psychologist to develop his professional life around collaborative innovation through clusters. And over to you, Antonio.
Thank you very much, Clodac, for the invitation and the opportunity to share with you today information about what are we doing here in Spain, and not only in Spain. I want to relate it also with the European new approaches on collaboration through networks. Okay, so very quickly, the European, for those of you that doesn't know, the European Cluster Alliance joins 18 national associations of clusters, and we don't have anybody from Ireland. So we need to solve that. Is a big problem for us. More than 800 clusters, representatives from different countries, and that means that we are grouping near 140,000 different innovative businesses and thousands also of universities, research centers, and public institutions. Before entering on the Spanish reality on clusters, I wanted to just highlight two very important concepts that we have been reviewing during the past month and year. Okay, so we are not, we should not just analyze the reality in terms of islands of excellence, neither in industrial value chains. Our current reality is about co-evolving ecosystems, and those agents that are linking those ecosystems are keystones for their function. So those entities that connect ecosystems provide them with more flexibility and link them especially in those critical moments. And this is about what we call now resilience. Resilience is a property of the network. The networks that are dense in connections are far more resilient than those that are serial that has serial links between the different nodes. So clusters are precisely that agent that connect the dots, connect the companies, connect the institutions, and connect all the agents in a concrete ecosystem. Okay, that's was important for me to say. Okay, about the Spanish program of clusters, we call here in the Spanish Ministry of Industry clusters. We call it agrupaciones empresariales innovadoras. It's the same. It's industrial clusters. Okay, so no need to remember that. Okay, the program, the Spanish program at Spanish level was launched in 2007. I need to say that the Basque Country and the Catalonians launched the cluster program far before, in beginning 1990s, more or less, yes. And so they have been working with clusters for more than 30 years now. But the Spanish ministry at global level, at national level, started working on 2007. And at this moment, we have had, I think, that near 300 registered clusters, and that was probably a mistake. Okay, so they decided to better select those clusters that are strategic for our country. And at this moment, we have 70 sectoral clusters. And I highlight that word sectoral because it's not always the approach, neither at regional levels or across Europe, but here in Spain, at national level, they decided to support only purely sectoral clusters. Those that are new receive and are registered as I receive infrastructure support for 4 years, the first 4 years of their activity. And after that, the funding, the support is only for projects, okay? That could be intra-cluster or inter-cluster. It's true that the Spanish ministry is promoting especially those inter-cluster projects that reinforce the capability of different clusters, okay, and different members. At this moment, the main focus is the digital transformation and how to implement Industry 4.0 across our industries. But it's true that this year we have incorporated the new priorities of the European Union, you know, green, sustainable, digital, and resilience. Okay, for this year, the budget is 38 million euros in funding, not in, no, it's purely funding. And there is the forecast to increase that numbers in 20 millions next year. So this was the Spanish global approach, but I need to say that there are also support for clusters at regional level in many regions across Spain, mostly 90% of them. Okay, why? Because sometimes, or it's very common that the priorities differs between the region and the nation. Okay, and the global Spanish ministry only wants to support strong clusters with a high level of representativity and a mature ecosystem. But some regions wants to support promising new areas of activities or new industries in the regions, or very common also cross-sectoral approaches. Okay, so that is why we differ on the support of clusters, and the most strongest of them are both as I said, Catalonia and the Basque Country, and the approach is also different between them. Okay, the Basque Country decided to support from the beginning only 11 very strong clusters. Okay, in comparison, the Catalonian started with something near 30, and they continue with near 30 smaller clusters. Okay, but the idea is that they have been able to provide the cluster community with a continuous support during the last 30 years, and that is very important, and that has made them probably between the best references on cluster activity across Europe. Okay, so you have there the list and the link to their programs. They are, in my opinion, excellent. In the Basque Country, they have also what they call the pre-clusters. Okay, the pre-clusters are those that are starting to work and learning from the established ones. Okay, and in fact, they compare the strong clusters, the current clusters, to help develop the pre-clusters and to help to mentor them during the process. Catalonia, I think that at this moment they have 29 clusters and several pre-clusters also, covering a lot of different sectors. Okay, I will not stop here. About the Spanish Federation of Clusters, we are the federation of the near 70 industrial clusters, probably more. Okay, at global level, we join 8,000 companies, businesses. Okay, and the last official number from the Ministry of Industry was that past year we the net billing of our global cluster community was 497 100 million euros. So near 47% of the global net billing of the country. It's a lot of money. And that was mainly realized through the members of the cluster community. So what do we do? The Spanish Federation of Clusters and the cluster community, we promote cooperation between clusters and many other associations. And for example, now for the recovery and resilience plans, we are collaborating with the network of technological parks, the network of information system technologies companies, the network of research centers, and so on. So we are mostly creating links not only between clusters but with all the wide ecosystem. Okay, but we want to be a referrer on this point and to coordinate the actions inside Europe and in relation with other markets also. Okay, let me go for the next slide. I don't know why it's not working. Just 1 second. So,
yeah.
Yeah, now it's working. Okay. So we try to follow the European Commission recommendation, and I wanted to share with you here two very important reports on this. Okay, the first one is why clusters matter. Okay, and there are very important numbers here. So, for example, members working on clusters pay better than those that are not including cluster, pay 13.5 plus or more higher average wage, and we grow better also and have a better annual employment growth rate. Okay, so those numbers are real. It's a global European study, and I think that they must be taken in account. And I am sharing here with you also some recommendations from the European Commission on how to establish clusters. And here you have also other two documents. Probably the most important one is the first, the report of the European Expert Group on Clusters. I am participating on it, okay? And these reports make 15 recommendations related to the new industrial, strategy, and that new industrial strategy is centered on what is called the new industrial ecosystems in Europe. Okay, I don't know if you know about that. You have the list of the 14 industrial ecosystems, and I wanted to share with you those. The list of recommendations. We are not going to go through them, okay? But the first group is related to the green transition and how clusters can lead that green transition. Okay, you have in the presentation the link to the full report. The second group is about digital transition, and the third one is about building resilience through clusters. Okay. And I wanted to give some example using the cluster IDIA in Spain, okay? So very quickly, IDIA is a non-profit association. This is very typical in our country. We are participating in many programs, European programs, but the next slides are about the activities of IDIA in the skills, upskilling and reskilling programs, okay? So we are a member of the Digital Skill and Jobs Coalition. But before going to that, this slide, it was introduced just 5 minutes before starting this seminar, sorry, because Claudia shared with me one question from somebody from your team. Okay, how can we demonstrate the utility of clusters? And those are real numbers of the evolution of the gross value added quantities on IDIA through the last crisis. Okay, and you can compare IDIA with Aragon, our regions, and Spain. HTS means high technology, okay? So the best performance group in our region and also in Spain. And as you can see, generally speaking, we are performing far better than the rest of the companies inside the cluster are performing far better than those outside of it. And this is very important. This is, for me, is the main confirmation. Okay, how do you know if you are helping your companies? Because they grow, and they grow better. Okay, and so I wanted to share this slide with you. But returning to the point of what clusters can do, you know, because it's very common the approach that we work on innovation or in development of technologies. Okay, what is not so well known is that we clusters at the European level, we are working a lot also in skills development. Okay, so this is one example. In fact, we shared this example with the expert group on clusters 2 weeks ago. Okay, so we clusters naturally born. For example, IDIA was bottom-up initiatives. We started working on skilling just from the beginning of our life, okay? And we have been organizing strategic action on that area from the very first years, okay? And so, for example, we open a dialogue with our government at regional level. We are also speaking at national level, but this example is about the regional level, on how to approach it strategically, okay? And this is an example of a study that we made for the regional government on 2015, developing from that study a strategic plan for the region, okay? And we have been developing it, or helping on the development of that strategic program through different initiatives. And this one that I am sharing with you is about how to cover the need for information technologies professional, okay, professional related to the digital profiles. And this program is called Program Encuentra. I wanted to share it with you, as I said, because it's not so very well common. And just to finish, because I know that I need to finish, okay? I wanted also to share with you 5 reasons why clusters are strategic agents and should or could be strategic agents for your activities across Ireland, okay? First, clusters are a key tool to the successful and quick implementation of innovative projects. And here you have an example of cascade funding programs, okay? This is an example of one InnoSub One project under the COSME program, okay? Where you can see how clusters in a consortia can help SMEs, mentor them, accompany them, support them on the development of and implementation of new technologies. In this case, with 5 million euros, this program was able to involve 112 organizations, 44 SMEs. Okay. Clusters can help to properly allocate the funding for economic value creation, because we are very close to the real market, and we have real-time information on what is happening, and we can avoid the repeat investment in the same area. Okay, so we are able to save resources, sharing knowledge, good practice, and expertise through the whole ecosystems. Okay. And the third point, very quickly, is we have proven to be strong and resilient partners. We have been collaborating from the beginning of the crisis with the European Commission on what can we do to help solve the problems in the different value chains. But at this moment, for example, probably you don't know because it's not secret but not very public, we are collaborating strongly with the increase of capacities production for COVID vaccines here in Europe. We are organizing a matchmaking event, joining more than 250 companies working for the production of vaccines, and it is being organized with our collaboration with the European Commission. It's official from the European Commission through the Cluster Collaboration Platform. And the fourth point is clusters are the best and quickest market sensors. Very important, especially when you need to be quick in your reaction. Okay, and the last point is clusters bring valuable knowledge for the drafting and development of your recovery plans and your policy instruments and the development of your strategies. This is my last message for you. Thank you very much.
thank you, Antonio. There was a huge amount of rich content in there, and I'm very grateful that you've shared it all with us here today. So thank you.